Hey everybody, this is Modern Refugee. Wanted to do a video sort of on my thoughts looking ahead to 2024. Now, there's a lot of things going on in the world. There always is. And there's a lot of things just lately that's been going on that have the potential to become bigger problems. And between the economy and the election next year, those are probably the two biggest things that I see here on the domestic front that could cause some type of issues. And it reminded me of something. Back when I was in my 20s, I worked with a bunch of salty old guys, and they had seen a lot of ups and downs in the economy. And especially, the factory work that we were doing at the time. And these guys basically told me something that I'm going to share with you guys here. And what that was is economic times were usually unstable during presidential election years, and especially if the administration was going to change. Now, some of these guys went all the way back into the early 1950s, and this was like the 1990s when I was working at this place. So, these guys have been working there for 40 years, so they had 40 years worth of experience of seeing ups and downs in the economy. And they always told me, times are good right now, you're making overtime, go ahead and get as much overtime as you can now because, next year is an election year. And I heard that time and time and time again from these old guys. Work as much as you can, bank as much as money as you possibly can, because, things are probably going to take a downturn in an election year. And they, like I said, I'm just falling back on what they told me and their experiences over the years. And I actually asked one old guy who was right at the top of the seniority list at the time that I was working with. He was probably in the top, I'd say 20. And this guy had to be 70 years old when I was working with him. And he just kept working. He was all right physically. So he just kept working because I don't think he had any family, and he just kept on going. It gave him something to work there. And I asked him about the different layoffs and the different recessions that he had seen through over the years. And he went back. He's like, well, there was this one and there was that one. And he said the worst one was in the 70s. He said we were off for a couple of years in the 70s. And, this is coming from a guy who was a little bit higher up on the seniority list at the time. But the old timers were always adamant, the ones I worked with, that election years always pose some type of economic turmoil. And then, of course, you have everything going on election-wise. The potential for problems is all over the place. And other than having yourself squared away to a point where that if you got to hunker down for a few days, if something's popping off in your area, I don't think there's much average people can do other than that. I mean, as far as the preparedness community goes, keep your situational awareness right at its peak. Avoid the crowds as much as possible, and stay away from anything that would have the potential to escalate. Your protests and your we've had protests around here, believe it or not, even out here in the middle of nowhere. We've had protests for different things. And the protests that we had around here, the ones I'm thinking of, they were always organized in the city, and then they were brought out here to the country. But as a general rule, the local authorities, the sheriff, that kind of stuff, they always kept a kind of a cap on that. They let them have their protest, and nothing really came of it. They were kind of like huge nothing burgers, but times have changed since then. It's not quite the same times as what they were a couple of years ago when these things took place before. But other than, the things that preppers do, normally, have some cash on hand, have some medicine on hand, make sure that your pantry's full, have your situational awareness to the maximum, have alternate routes in and out of areas, have have yourself squared away. That situational awareness is huge. I've been able to avoid more problems than I've gotten into because I've seen where things could be a problem in the future, and just avoid those problems entirely. The best survival situation, of course, is the one that you never find yourself in the first place in. So anyway, just wanted to share that, a little bit of I guess advice from the old timers. The old timers always said presidential election years were always kind of crapola for the economy, at least around here. And make the money while you can, because you might be sitting on a layoff during a presidential election year. But a lot of wisdom from those guys, just like the old farmers that were around here and the old timers that I grew up with. Those old guys that I worked with, they had seen a lot, and they were more than willing to talk about it if you ask them questions. So anyways, Modern Refugee, appreciate all my subscribers out there. Hope you guys got a little information, a little entertainment, something to think about as always out of this video, and you guys have a good one.